Hey, here we are with the next mask here from the Lectures from the Desk of the Unbound. My name is James Tippins. As if you didn't know, it's all over the screen here. But this mask here is sort of like, I'll explain the architecture of ease. The recreation mask. This is the mask that is the hardest to name in a room because every other mask in the series produces a version of obvious strain. Okay. The resume mask person is driven visibly. People can see that. Okay. The relationship mask person is easy to see they're overextended. The rules mask person is visibly tense underneath the order. The strain is present and eventually legible, right? But this mask, the recreation mask, this person from the outside looks like someone who has figured something out. They're easygoing, they're fun, they have a good time, they're warm, unencumbered, like, man, nothing bothers me. They're the one in the group who can be counted on to make everything exciting or lighten the mood or help everybody through a hard day. The person who never seems to carry their stress visibly, and they always know where the good time is, right? Underneath, though, underneath all that apparent ease, there's someone who has not been fully present in their own life, probably in years. Because the ease is not the absence of difficulty, it's the active management of any experience that requires depth. It's the trivial mind, right? The lightness is not natural. It is very deliberate. It's the result of having learned early on and very thoroughly that the heavy parts of life are not safe to bring into the room. So they built an identity around where the parts are supposed to be. And the lightness is what became their identity. The recreation mask is the identity that says, if I keep it light, the heavy stuff can't find me. If I stay in motion, in fun and ease, and the next distraction, I don't have to sit with the thing that I've been moving around for most of my life as an adult. Like you could see things in my room. Let's move this. Let's move these reeds over here. They'll be in the way, but they won't be in the way over here. Why don't I just put them in the saxophone case, And I'm not talking about grief specifically. As a matter of fact, I'm not talking about any specific thing, though sometimes there is one. More often, it's the general quality of depth, of weight, of genuine interiority that the mask learned was too costly to carry publicly, so they learned to set it down permanently. The origin of this mask is usually an environment where depth was either unsafe or unwelcome. And sometimes it was a household where emotional heaviness was responded to with dismissal or ridicule. I don't want to hear your trauma dump. Why don't you just get over? Are you going to cry? Or what do you want? That kind of stuff. Sometimes it was a peer environment where the person learned that their depth made them too much, too serious, too intense. The groups that they hung out in that they needed to belong to heard those things. Gosh, I don't think anybody can live up to these standards. Sometimes it was a family system where levity was the survival strategy, okay? But humor and lightness were the only acceptable responses to genuine pain, and where the person who brought the real thing was either shamed or just simply not received. In each case, the learning was the same. Hey, you keep it light and you get to stay. And so they stayed, and they became very good at this staying. They developed genuine warmth and humor and social intelligence. I mean, they became the person that everyone wants in the room. They became skilled at the particular kind of connection that happens in light spaces, which is real connection. It is not fake, but it is incomplete. And the part that is missing, the part that lives in the deeper register of a person's actual experience, has been underground for so long that the recreation mask person has sometimes genuinely lost track of whether it's still there. I want to describe the specific mechanics of how the recreation mask operates from day to day and the experience of it, because it's more deliberate than it appears, and the deliberateness is mostly invisible, especially to the person that does it. The primary mechanism is motion for this mask, not physical motion necessarily, though sometimes that is very evident, but more or less psychological motion. So it's the continuous availability of the next thing, the next social engagement, the next entertainment, the next movie, the next scrolling, the next distraction, the next plan. Yep, let's go, 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 go. The recreation mask person has an extraordinary capacity to remain occupied. Their calendar has sort of a particular quality to it. It's not the productive busyness of the resume mask, but the social and experiential busyness of a person who has learned that the space between activities is where they have been moving around lives. I mean, their life. It's where their life is. And when the motion stops, when the space, the genuine space of stillness opens up, there is an arrival. I mean, something comes. Not always a specific thought or feeling that can be named immediately, more often a general quality of heaviness or weight or gravity, a heaviness that the motion has been preventing very successfully for a very long time. And the recreation mask person, having learned to associate this weight with danger, they move immediately back toward the noise. I mean, they pick up their phone, they make some plans, they reach out to a friend, somebody gets called, the motion resumes, the weight recedes, and the person calls this preference when it's really just a fun avoidance. The relationships of the recreation mask person have a specific ceiling that's worth understanding. They're often extraordinarily good at the early and middle stages of a relationship. They bring energy and warmth and humor and really a lot of presence, and they make people feel good to be around them. The early stages of friendship and romantic relationships even, where the primary activity is shared experience and mutual enjoyment, these are really excellent for the recreation mask person. They thrive there. But relationships develop, they deepen. They have to deepen or it's not a relationship. They arrive eventually at places that require a different register. Places where what is needed is not ease, but presence with the hard thing. Where a friend needs to bring their grief and have it held. Where a partner or spouse needs to bring something that's not comfortable and be received in it. Where the depth of the relationship depends on the willingness to go deeper together. And this is where the recreation mask person encounters their specific limitation. Not because they don't care, they care deeply. But because the tools that they've developed for relationship are almost entirely tools of the light register. The depth register, the one that knows how to sit in difficulty without making it lighter, the one that can be with someone in their pain without immediately moving to relieve it, this has not been developed in the same way. And when the relationship requires it, the recreation mask either redirects the conversations towards something more manageable or just becomes so uncomfortable in a way that the other person can feel it or disappears from the relationship at the moment it most needed them to sit still and stay. The substance use and activity addictions, not always clinical, but present in the pattern among this type of mask, are worth naming. Not because all recreation mask people have addiction issues, they don't, but because the recreation identity produces a consistent relationship with any substance or activity that reliably reduces the light register. So alcohol, which chemically produces ease, screens, which provide infinite motion without requiring any depth or investment whatsoever, social media, which provide constant low-level stimulation that literally prevents the space in which the real thing arrives, food, coffee, which provides sensory comfort without the cost of genuine presence. These are not moral failures. They're understandable applications of the mask's primary strategy, which basically is this. If I can keep the experience light enough, then the weight of life won't arrive. And there's also a particular quality of boredom that the recreation mask person experiences that is worth distinguishing from ordinary boredom. Now, I personally don't understand boredom at all, and I have an experience where I've just never done it because primarily I've also worn the recreation mask. Most people experience boredom as the absence of sufficient stimulation. The recreation mask person experiences a specific kind of boredom that is actually the arrival of the thing they have been moving around. Depth, the inner space, the interiority, the part of themselves that does not need stimulation and that has been waiting patiently and consistently for the motion to stop long enough that it can be heard. When this boredom arrives, the recreation mask person's impulse is to immediately address it with more stimulation. But what would actually address the boredom, I think, is the opposite. Stillness. Enough stillness to let the thing underneath the motion surface and be met. But what is underneath that? So let's speak directly to that for a minute. The recreation mask has been covering some stuff. And I think it's important to talk about this because I think this type of person often has a fear that what is underneath the ease is something painful or damaged or heavy in a way that will be completely overwhelming and destructive. So let's talk about that fear. What is underneath is not primarily pain, though there may be some pain that needs to be moved through. What is underneath is depth. And depth is not the same as suffering. Depth is the capacity for genuine humanity, for genuine interiority, for genuine personality, for genuine self, for being fully in your own experience rather than in motion through it. Sitting in a moment of real significance and being present to what it is rather than trying to manage the experience. Depth is what makes art resonant and grief honest. It's what makes joy actually joyful rather than just a performance. It is not the enemy of lightness. And when people build their identity around lightness, they treat anything that's not light as an enemy. It's the foundation. Depth is the foundation that would make the lightness genuine rather than defensive. The recreation mask person, when they do this work, does not become serious and heavy. They often become the most genuinely and enjoyable person in the room because the warmth and the humor and the ease that they developed are real gifts. They just become now available as genuine expression rather than as a defense mechanism and light avoidance. The lightness becomes chosen rather than compulsive. The fun becomes present rather than reflexive. And underneath it, for the very first time, there's a ground to stand on. Something that is there when the fun stops. Something that does not need the next thing to feel okay. A steadiness, if you will, that the motion was covering that turns out to be exactly what the recreation mask person was afraid was not there. The movement, though, the practical movement for this person begins with a practice that is exactly as simple and difficult as it sounds. And it begins with this: staying, sitting, stillness. When the weight arrives in a moment of stillness, instead of immediately moving toward the noise, staying with it for 30 more seconds. Not to wallow in it, not to dramatize, just to let it arrive without immediately treating it as a problem to solve. To let the depth surface and be present to it, even briefly before the motion resumes. Over time, this builds a tolerance for the depth that the mask has been preventing, and tolerance, when it's established well, becomes something more important. It becomes familiar. And familiarity with one's own depth is the most stabilizing experiences available to any human being because it eliminates the fear of the depth. And when the fear is gone, the motion becomes optional rather than necessary. And motion that is optional is completely different from motion that is survival. In relationships, the movement begins with choosing, in at least one significant relationship, to bring something real when something real is present. It's a choice. not performing difficulty, not being unnecessarily heavy, but the next time someone close to you brings something that requires depth, choosing to stay in the depth register rather than trying to lighten the moment so that it has a chance to land. To be with the person in their actual experience rather than relieving the experience. That choice, made once with full presence, builds more genuine intimacy than years of excellent companionship in the light register. Picture a version of your life where the ease is genuinely yours, where you can be in a room and be fully present in it without the background process running, tracking whether the moment requires lightening, where you can be in a conversation that goes into depth and stays in the depth without the reflexive pull towards something more manageable, where a quiet evening doesn't produce the need for stimulation because the quiet itself is something you can inhabit rather than something you need to fill. Picture being able to be bored without the boredom being an emergency, being able to be sad without the sadness being something to get away from as fast as possible, being able to be in difficulty with someone you love and staying there in that difficult space long enough that the person feels met. That's not heaviness. That is presence. And presence is the thing that this mask has been preventing many of you from offering to others and to yourself for a very long time. The recreation mask made you the one who keeps it light. Your actual identity is someone who can hold the full register, light and heavy both, and who does not need to choose between them to be okay and to feel safe. The depth you have been moving around is not going to destroy you. It is, in fact, the very thing that will make you whole. You want more on the masks? They're all on my YouTube channel. This is James Tippins. This is Unbound. See you next time.